So yeah, we've got a good number of attendees. If people join us partway through, they can catch up or they can watch the recording later. Okay, so welcome everyone to the fourth part. I believe this is the fourth part of the Suez Summer School. Myself, Duncan Nicholas, and Jadranka Stoyanovsky are your hosts for this session today on best practices in journal publishing. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then Jadranka can tell you a bit about herself. I am Duncan Nicholas. I'm currently president of EASE, the European Association of Science Editors. I'm director of editorial consultancy and DN Journal Publishing Services. I'm development editor for a reproductive biomedical journal, and I also do some copywriting for COPE as well, Committee on Publication Ethics. And I provide a lot of consultancy to independent journals, society journals, advising them on many various wide different practices, development plans, action points for journal development, some of which that we'll be speaking with you about today. So that's a little bit about me. Jadranka, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm Jadranka Stoyanovsky, assistant professor at University of Zadar in Croatia and research librarian at Ruđer Bošković Institute. I'm involved for several decades in creation and development of national research infrastructure in Croatia, supporting open access and open science. I participate actively in different European projects. I'm also national contact point for open access to scientific information at European Commission representing Croatia. I'm member of EASE and Opera's Executive Assembly and Open Science MOOC Steering Committee and other professional societies. And I'm chair of the Program Committee of PubMed Conference on Scholarly Publishing in the context of open science, which will be held in 10 days in Zadar in Croatia. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, we are both members of EASE, and it's kind of within that context we've been invited to speak to you today. Now, for anyone that isn't aware of EASE, just wanted to quickly describe it, which it is an association of international community of editors of all roles from diverse backgrounds, linguistic traditions, and experiences. Communicating, collaborating on raising standards and sharing best practice in all kind of forms of research, communication, editing and publishing skills and practices. We have committed to support our Ukrainian members and the wider community of Ukrainian editorial and editing professionals by offering free full membership to anyone in editorial roles until the end of 2024 as a way of kind of doing what we can as an association to help support editors in kind of the wake and continuing invasion of Ukraine. So if you watch this webinar and you haven't taken advantage of that offer with EASE and you're not currently a member, please do get in touch, and we can sort you out with a membership. So in this session today, I am going to go through the first three sections and then hand over to Jadranka. I do unfortunately have to leave quite early, so I won't be around for questions at the end. So if you do want to give me some questions about my section or sections at the end before I hand over to Jadranka, I can deal with those then. And also, at the end of the full webinar. If you do have any questions unanswered, or you think of anything afterwards, you can contact us and with your questions, and we can provide you with written answers. Or if you want any clarification on anything, we can provide you with some written responses to anything that you would like to know. So in this session, we are going to very quickly introduce some themes within the context of openness and transparency. That's really the overarching sort of concept that will underpin everything that we want to speak about. Partly because me and Jadranka are both quite passionate advocates of that being one of the most fundamentally important themes of research, activity and publishing that we should be trying to achieve through all of these practices. So we have publishing policies, ethics, and some of the key prominent features that are kind of hot topics at the moment: preprints, data sharing, introduction to some guidelines, methodological and reporting guidelines that underpin research, research ethics, and editorial guidelines for best practice. And then some thoughts on the peer review process and publishing platforms, how we kind of manage this whole editorial process. And then I'll pass over to Jadranka to speak about enhancing journal visibility through persistent identifiers and through indexing, database indexing, and social media, how to reach audiences and engage with the journal community. And extending to the last point on collaboration, different forms of collaboration, and who is involved in journal practices. So without further ado, I shall start on my section, the first part, publishing policies. Publishing ethics are one of the most important things to underpin the activities of a journal. The Committee on Publication Ethics is one of the key resources in this regard. The journal should have clearly defined policies on issues where decisions will be required to be made, not just editorial decisions on papers, but the choices that you can make for every aspect of your editorial practice, from what financial model should a journal be based on, adopt, how many people do you need on your editorial board, how can readers raise ethical concerns with the journal. These are all guided by some practical elements, some ethical elements, and some kind of parts of identifying who your community are and what fits best, what suits them, what will be most appropriate. The journal policies are often deal with problematic issues such as ethical dilemmas, and they're important to understand how the journal will deal with problems in a consistent manner. For full transparency, a journal should make all of its policies from submission to publication, including all processes that authors or readers will encounter, should make them all clear on the website. And creating all these policies is a really good way for you to understand how your journal operates and get a much deeper understanding of your practices, what you want to achieve, and how you will achieve them. There may be policies or practices specific to disciplines. For example, health journals require ethical approval evidence, which may not apply to all subjects. and also to your community and to your location, which is local requirements. Not all policies can be written in advance of something happening. You may not be able to predict everything that will turn up. So some of these policies will be developed over time as your journal develops and your experience of managing running journals develops. But the COPE core practices here along the side are extremely helpful in organizing a journal website, as well as your own thoughts and understanding of what issues may arise, what practical kind of processes you need to establish. And here on this slide are some of the questions that these core practices kind of ask you to consider. What are the requirements of submission? What happens to articles after they are submitted? Who deals with them and how? A description of your editorial process there. How can authors appeal the reject decision should they need to? So there's some of the questions to consider when you're developing policies and processes. Some specific examples that are increasing in importance that journals have to consider. Preprints, a form of publication which enables free peer-reviewed articles to be shared quickly and widely under open access licenses, preferably under a formal open access license rather than just free to read, usually at no cost to authors. Some journals, or most journals increasingly, are allowing authors to submit if after their article is posted to a preprint server. That hasn't always been the way, and there are still some journals that will not accept submissions if the paper is available as a preprint, but increasingly most journals are allowing it, to the extent that some journals are now encouraging authors to post their paper to a preprint server when they submit to the journal as well. So clear policies on the journal's attitude and acceptance of preprints are increasingly important. Secondly, data sharing and data availability. This is also increasing in prevalence across journals. Showing the full data sets underlying the results in the article can be extremely beneficial in enabling the reuse of the research article, reducing research waste, and promoting collaboration through that reuse of the data. And this greater transparency of the data that informs the article increases the trust in research, which is one of the main goals of transparency, allowing the results to be independently verified more easily if there are any questions raised about the paper. This creates a more reliable, trustworthy evidence base that research is based on, and it adds obstacles to people trying to perform research misconduct or manipulate their results by putting in the expectation and the requirement that the data will be accessible. Part of the idea is to reduce the amount of people that might manipulate their data because it's more readily visible. Many funders now require that their data sets, the data sets from studies that they fund, must be shared, and journals are increasingly adopting sharing and availability policies to enhance this transparency. So in terms of guidelines, reporting and methodological guidelines. The Equator Network is kind of the key resource for health science, health research guidelines, but they do also have some many kind of subject transferable guidelines available. I think they have nearly 600 different guidelines for processes and reporting processes in this website. So if you haven't looked at it, it is worth browsing through it. You can search by various topics, study type, research type, clinical areas for those involved in medical practices, and the sections of the report that they refer to. And that is the introduction, the literature review, the methodology. So here's an example: consensus-based checklist for reporting survey studies. Maybe some of you are familiar with this. So that's just one example, but yes, so there are hundreds in here. Some are more well known than others. You can see the strobe reporting guidelines there. There's guidelines for animal research, as well as human research. Ethical guidelines for publishing ethics. I already mentioned briefly COPE's core practices, but they have many other guidelines and flowcharts to help support and inform editorial processes. And they take some of the difficult decision-making away from you, from trying to create processes from scratch. Again, they have a toolkit for setting up successful editorial office with some kind of foundational principles, as well as kind of guidance on aspects such as editing, peer reviews, the ethical considerations, as well as the practical considerations, editorial board participation, again, as well as the kind of practical expectations and managing people's expectations that you might want to set. There are also the ethical issues of things like conflicts of interest, competing interests of people being maybe on multiple boards or having commercial interests for depending who they work with and which journals they will be on the boards for. Managing relationships between society-owned journals. That's a more recent and a quite useful guide that answers many questions that certainly I get asked in my consultancy. And they also have a principles of transparency and best practices in scholarly publishing, which is a collaborative document between OASPA and other publishing organizations. Directory of open access journals as well, I believe, contributes to that, and all those organizations use these same principles. So there is a cohesive, kind of coherent set of expectations for the standards and policies that journals should adhere to, and the requirements for indexing in various databases, which Jed Ranker will speak to you about later. And it's not just COPE that have these publishing ethical guidelines as well. ICMJE also has recommendations for publishing scholarly work in medical journals, but again, a lot of these practices are transposable to different subject areas. And of course, EASE also has developed several guidelines and documents for editorial offices to use, particularly the sex and gender reporting guidelines for increasing the recognition of sex and gender reported in and incorporated into methodologies and results. So in terms of publication ethics that the editorial office should be vigilant of, and the forms of ethical misconduct that you will be looking for are include kind of activities such as redundant, duplicate publication, dual submission, where people submit the same article to more than one journal to try and kind of speed up the peer review process for themselves. Author disputes, where people are either named on papers that they didn't want to be or didn't have anything to do with, or whether they feel that they should have been listed as a formal author, or the order of author names on an article. They're quite common disputes that editorial officers have to deal with. Data fabrication or misrepresentation of data in the paper. That one kind of straddles publishing ethics and research ethics, which I'll get to shortly. Plagiarism, the deliberate misrepresentation of other people's work as the author's own work in texts or images. So we have text similarity checking software is quite well established feature of editorial processes. Some people recommend that every article submitted to a journal is run through a similarity checker, because it can throw up some surprising results that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But there are costs involved with doing that, with checking every paper. There may be costs involved. Conflicts of interest, submission irregularities. That's kind of a nod to what's the term? Kind of article farms. There's been a lot of kind of attention paid to it recently, but the actual term escapes me. Where paper mills, sorry, that's the phrase. Paper mills, where a huge number of articles are churned out, maybe from the same data sets, maybe usually from kind of fabricated or plagiarized data sets, making a huge number of articles. Often the authorship of those articles is sold for people that want lots of publications to their name, or quick and easy publications. So there are various ways people are developing to notice these kind of patterns in submissions. And lastly, animal welfare, human welfare concerns in the methods, in the presentation or mentioning of consent forms, of institutional review boards, ethics committees, approval, that kind of thing. If there is the presence or absence of those kind of statements, and whether there be any red flags raised there. So in contrast to publication ethics, research ethics is distinct as it concerns the application of fundamental principles in the creation and conduct of the research itself, rather than in the writing up of it or the presentation of that research and the submission of it and the activities around that. So these include design, implementation of the research, the treatment of individuals, people or animals, being mindful and respectful of individuals or societal matters and others, acting in accordance with received conventions and guidelines, using resources and research outputs responsibly, and complying with sort of agreed regulation of research practices. So for the editorial office, resolving issues of publication ethics are often much easier than resolving those of research ethics. Matters dealing, for example, plagiarism, text similarity, it's reasonably easy to identify and establish the amount of similarity and duplication of text, and for the editorial office to have a conversation with the author about that and reach a conclusion as to whether it was kind of malicious, manipulative, deliberate, or innocent and kind of naive mistake, depending on the amount of similar text involved in the paper. However, the kind of misuse or abuse of individuals during the research stage, if there's no consent, if the actual methodology that a researcher has used is kind of wildly inappropriate or unethical, that is an issue for the researcher's institution to deal with and resolve, that the journal will have to be involved with, but it goes to a more kind of fundamental level of researcher conduct and research ethics. That is, and it could be argued that these research ethics are sort of fundamentally more important to the integrity of the scientific process than the publication ethics. So the peer review process. Time check, make sure I'm not overrunning, not doing too badly. The peer review process. So I'm sure you're all familiar with the kind of core concept of peer review. So I didn't want to go into too many details about the process itself, so much as the importance of concepts surrounding it, particularly around maintaining a database and understanding what the most useful information to you will be and what you want to know. And the best way, I think, to understand this is to perform regular reporting and regular kind of interrogation or asking yourselves questions about your community and the performance of the reviewing. So here are some of the kind of common measures that that I measure for people and for journals that I work on, timeframes, and look at how these change or how these perform over time to see where sort of weak points of the peer review process are, and whether you need to make any interventions in how the process is kind of managed. And that could be, you know, a warning sign could be whether it's too short and happening much too quickly, or whether it's taking too long. So how long it takes to do initial checks, whether the paper meets the aims and scope and the instructions for authors, how long it takes to invite reviewers and actually get the required number of reviewers to agree. Reviewer performance statistics, asterisk that, because I'm going to talk about that in a bit more detail on the next slide. Analyzing the number of reviewers invited to see whether it takes you 5 invitations or 50 invitations to secure, say, 2 reviewers. If you're always finding that you have to ask 20 or 30 reviewers, then you might need to consider exactly what is happening. Why is that the case? Although that seems to be an increasingly common problem that many journals are experiencing, having to invite high numbers of people. There may be ways for you to have a more effective kind of invitation structure or model of how you're identifying and inviting people. Editorial decisions, how long it takes to make decisions, what those decisions are, how long it takes for authors to revise papers, how long it takes to review any revisions to get to the final decision and the number of rounds of revision that it's taking. So, for example, if you find that it's taking like several rounds of revision, always, maybe 3, sometimes maybe 4 rounds of revision, and it's taking quite a long time for the authors to revise, is there a more effective way of presenting the editor's decision and the ways that you are asking your authors to revise their papers before they before they submit a successful revision that meets all of the requirements? Are reviewers giving inconsistent, too much conflicting feedback? Is there something that you can do to make that more efficient? So the best way to identify trends in all of those is to carry out regular reporting. So those reviewer statistics and demographics, similarly with the whole journal and paper activity, some interesting reviewer performance statistics you might want to look at: the number of times individuals are invited, the number of times they agree, the number of reviews that they submit, the times they fail to deliver, how long it takes them to submit reviews. So that will help you identify your regular and reliable reviewers, and also if you're overusing people, over relying on them too much. And also the recommendations that the reviewers make, if you use those. Maybe you might be interested in how the reviewer recommendations tally with the editor's decision as well, and whether you find there are individuals that consistently don't match the decisions that the editors make, and whether that's important for you to kind of act on. You could also add into this review performance the number of papers that individuals contribute to for the journal. I call those people friends of the journal, those kind of these tables. I often make these tables of stats for journals that I work on, using not just the lead author, but all of the full list of co-authors, and see who contributes the most in these ways to the journal, and also can add whether they are already an editorial board member into that sort of friends of the journal matrix table as well. And I often find that produces surprising results for journal editors. They don't always notice how many papers people are a co-author on particularly. So that's a quite useful thing to do. In addition to those kind of statistics, performance statistics, journals are increasingly collecting demographic information to understand who their reviewers, and not just reviewers, but everyone in their database, all their authors as well, ideally, to make sure that the journal is increasingly equitable and fair, treating their authors and reviewers fairly in a properly representative way, particularly if that is relevant to the topic of the journal. It may not always be. In most cases, it's probably quite important to understand this, but sometimes it could be particularly relevant to the aims and scope and the content of the journal. So journals are increasingly asking people voluntarily to provide this information on sex and gender, nationality, race, whether they have any disabilities or abilities to mention, as well as their expertise and keywords. So participation in these questions should always be optional, and should be the individuals that are providing the information. And the journals that are collecting this don't share this with even the editors. They're not visible to anyone in the system. But the journal staff use them to create sort of anonymized reports that just look at the demographics of this across the journal, not on an individual basis. So it is still quite anonymized. So segueing from peer review to publishing platforms, kind of the last bit of me before I hand over to Jadranka. Choosing a publishing platform can be quite difficult if you're starting from scratch, certainly. There are a huge number of platforms and service providers offering support. It's quite competitive. There are lots of options. The price points of these platforms vary dramatically, and responsibility of the costs falls to a number or a range of organizations or individuals. So it's important to understand what you need to achieve or what you want to achieve with this platform and in what ways you can support it. So, for example, some of the high cost peer review and production management systems, Scholar One Manuscripts, Editorial Manager, eJournal Press is less so, Manuscript Manager. They all offer, well, they're kind of the big ones and well integrated with various other systems, quite sophisticated, but they are all extremely high cost compared to Open Journal Systems, which is an open source platform, which open source can often seem low cost to begin with because the software is free, but you need to invest in some of the infrastructure behind it, like web servers, paying web developers to set it up and maintain. So the costs do increase even in apparently zero cost open source systems. So there are always costs to consider. Now these systems, well, the first ones here, they are only kind of peer review production management platforms. Then you'll need to actually find a content management system to publish the articles on and make them visible and accessible. Open Journal Systems has that built in to it. Some of the major publishing platforms that are used by major publishers, Outupon, Ingenta, Silverchair, Highwire, they're all kind of big publishing content management systems. Again, they can be quite expensive, so they may not entirely suit your models and your needs. There are increasingly several end-to-end submission, peer review, and publication platforms that have allowed journals to be more independent and offer many of the core essential features that major publishers have often provided to journals, but they are all now incorporated into these systems, like transferring metadata to the various different databases, integration with like altmetric, presentation of metrics, again, like views, number of downloads and things. They make them very easy to see, integration with things like Publons, and providing all of the sort of management publication interfaces. So they're all very useful end-to-end platforms. And as an example, the EASE journal, European Science Editing, uses our journal is hosted on Arthur platform. The journal is a diamond open access model, so there are no author fees, no submission fees, no reader fees. The costs for the platform are sponsored by Arthur, so they give us the platform in return for regular advertising to our members, which is, that's fantastic. We're very appreciative of that. It's working incredibly well for us, as you can see here from this screenshot. Our articles on this platform are now receiving, this one, 300 unique views, 600 in total, 200 unique views, nearly 1,000 unique views. So many of our articles now receive well over 1,000 views as a Diamond open access journal, compared to our previous subscription journal, when it was only available to members, and the articles would get only a couple of hundred reads, if that. So this is hugely beneficial for ease as an association, but we do have additional costs. It's not all free or sponsored. So editorial stipends, the funds for copy editing and typesetting the articles, are funded through membership fees. So that's where the funds for the Diamond access model come from, on membership. So benefits of ease membership to support the research that is published through the journal. And then, in addition to that, activities such as promotion of articles, advocacy for the journal, and board member positions, they're all voluntary positions. And they also, that takes quite a bit of work as well in all of those areas. Various members of the editorial board and ease are out commissioning articles, speaking to the authors, which can be time consuming. So there is a time cost to consider there, if not a financial cost. So that's just a kind of a quick example of a platform. And that was a very quick kind of run through of some core concepts from my side. I do unfortunately have to leave before the end, in fact, in a few minutes, to attend another meeting. So before I leave you with Jadranka, I'd like to ask whether anyone has any questions for me before I have to disappear. Otherwise, I'll be very happy to take questions in writing after everyone has had some time to reflect on the session. There are no questions now. I shall hand over to Jadranka to take us through visibility and collaboration.
Thank you. So very quickly, in my talk, I will say something about two important topics related to the best practices in journal publishing. One is how to improve visibility of the journal, and very shortly, I will present you future collaboration possibilities because we are working on several projects which will be active in the next few years. So persistent identifiers, it's definitely increase the visibility and findability of published content. And some studies even show that existence of, for example, digital object identifier, which I will present you shortly, in journals has a major bearing on the citations received. So, and in the real world, we are all very familiar with persistent identifiers. Usually we got identifier and it's assigned, some of them are assigned as at birth, like in Croatia we have personal identification number, and many identifiers are assigned to us later. For example, proving that we are eligible to drive a car or to travel outside a country. And we will have different identifiers as a member of I don't know, mountaineering association or different professional societies and association. For example, I have, as a member of EASE, I have EASE ID. In the world of scholarly publication, it's somehow similar, but we are often neglecting it, that we need also to establish relation between different entities in the world of scholarly publication. So if we start with published article, for example, we are all familiar with it, then we have authors who wrote it, we have funders who support actually financially the study, we have peer reviewers, we have authors affiliation institution, we have data sets related to this specific article. We have maybe we paid article processing charges for open access. It's really important to keep track on this. And we need a lot of identifiers. So we could talk about identifiers for few workshops like that, but I will focus only on few of them. Why are identifiers important? Because research landscape is becoming very big, and we need to be able to connect, for example, the agency funding the research with institutions and individuals actually doing this research, and the research outcomes publication, not only publication, but dataset software, etc. And the role of journals in making the order in this growing area of research is very important. You are all aware that hyperlinks are not enough. We are using it often, of course, but maybe you didn't know that in 10 years, actually 70%, more than 70% of hyperlinks are not working anymore, and we need some other solution to be able to find a digital object. So persistent identifiers are actually pointers to data resources in different forms. They should be globally unique with infinitive lifespan. Of course, infinity is not always infinite. Someone should be responsible for this attribute. Persistent identifiers we can use to identify and retrieve different kinds of resources. And it's important that can be resolved to physical resource, digital object, which is stored somewhere in the cloud or servers at some institution, etc. Characteristics of persistent identifier, that they should be long-lasting. They should be what is important for persistent identifiers, that they should have behind organizational commitment and technical infrastructure, which will actually enable that this code is uniquely identifiable, and that it will remain functional even if the organization, for example, change web address, etc. So even if a digital object is moving from one location to another, with persistent identifier, we will be able to locate it and access to it. Yes, and this is a note by Kunz that persistence is purely a matter of service. So it's the persistency depends on the degree that someone commits to resolve them for users. So it's this organizational commitment is important. I will just very shortly present you 3 persistent identifiers, which I need that journal need to implement them. And first, it's a digital object identifier, and I'm sure that you are familiar with it. Unfortunately, it's not free of charge. It's 2 main institutions are responsible to assign digital object identifier. One is Crossref and another is a DataCite, and both are charging annual fee. So you can, as a journal or publisher, you can choose to pay this annual fee and then pay later it seems to me that the price is $1 per assigned DOI per article. And or you can do it at national level, like we in Croatia. Actually, our national and university library has an agreement with Crossref, and they are assigning DOIs to all journals in Croatian journals. This option, it's of course affordable for journal, but on the other side, you are depending on, in this case, on the rules of National University Library, and you are also not able to assign DOI to all published papers, just to original scientific papers or some other types of published papers according to national library rules. Yes, I will not bother you with technical details and how DOI is structured. What is important that it's always displayed as URL, and we are all familiar with URLs, and resolves to URL, which will lead you to the digital object which is behind DOI. So the second identifier is related to authors. So, and we all know that we have many problems with identifying author of, for example, certain article, published article. We can have one name with multiple, with multiple persons behind, multiple names, one person's initials which are not resolved, pseudonyms, missing names, added name, merged names, and changed name, which is, for example, when someone gets married and changes surname. And this can really cause the enormous problem in identifying how actually certain researcher, its author of which articles, it's affiliated with which institution and different project, etc. So we are using author identifiers for decades. For example, popular researcher ID assigned by Clarivate and related to Web of Science Core collection. Another is Scopus ID. We have Archive ID, Google Scholar ID, which is very popular. In Croatia, we have national ID. Every researcher has national ID, but this is not recognized outside Croatia. And we have additional problems with authors. For example, library cataloging rules, just putting the names of first 3 authors in the metadata. And of course, we have ethical issues. Duncan mentioned already something related to ethical issues. we need to be sure that some author is real author of the paper or data sets or whatever. So ORCID became globally recognized and very popular, and it's free of charge, so every researcher can get ORCID free of charge. As an institution, if you want some additional functionalities, or then you need to pay something, but for researchers it's free and provides unique persistent identifier that can be used tracking someone's career, professional activities, affiliation, publication, etc. And yeah, connect researcher with papers, grants, data sets, and more. And the third persistent identifier is research organization registry. It's identifier for institution. It's not so globally recognized and adopted, but it's we can see that more and more research organizations are asking to get ID from RIOR. And what is good that this initiative started by a group of 17 organizations. It's also open initiative, community-led project. Institutions will be not charged to get identifier. And we hope that more and more institutions will have this kind of identifier in the future. So recommendations of RIOR, it's actually implementation of such an identifier will enable connections between organization records in various systems. And yes, and several other, I will just, you can check later in my presentation. And what journals can do to increase their visibility further on? They can apply to be included in popular databases like Web of Science collection and Scopus, for example. This is very, so in Croatia, all journals are really trying hard to enter in these databases, and which are, it's somehow expected, because Web of Science collection and Scopus are used for most of bibliometric analysis. So if your journal is outside, you wouldn't be a part of such analysis, and definitely inclusion in the databases increase the visibility of the journal, because the databases are very popular among researchers. In Croatia, included journals are considered prestigious. I don't know, this is, for example, this is based on the promotion criteria which are in place, and somehow when your journal enter Web of Science or Scopus, then you prove that you are very good journal, which we can discuss about it. And but both databases are good to track the performance. Citation, you should be aware that only citations from this citation world, actually database coverage will be included, not all citations. And yes, the criteria used by Web of Science and Scopus are, of course, transparent, quite extensive. If we compare Scopus and Web of Science, criteria are quite similar, but in practice, the inclusion criteria are very biased, and we should not forget that both databases and their development is driven by commercial interest. So you can apply I provided links in my slides for Web of Science core collection or for Scopus, and you can see that first they will look for the basic criteria like ISSN, journal title, journal publisher. They are required that they can access the content, and they are very keen to see peer review policy transparently described on journal website, and some contact details. Then if this first phase was successful, then it's second phase, which is editorial triage, and they're asking for article titles and article abstract in English. They're asking for scholarly content, not only professional content or some other types of content. And yes, I don't have time to go through, but if you compare it with, in the third phase, they will look at the editorial board, what is citation rate of editorial board member. They will look more carefully peer review process, and etc. And Scopus has a very similar. They have also minimum criteria. The journal need to be peer reviewed, need to have English abstract, need to be published regularly. That's very important for both databases. They should have reference in Roman script and publication ethics statements. So, and when also after these satisfying these basic conditions, then additional requirements appear and are evaluated. So you can do a lot with, with promoting your journals using social media. And if you choose the right social platform and build your community, you can really do a lot for your journal. We had discussion on this among Croatian editors, and yes, they are complaining that they don't have time for such activities. Yes, it's time consuming, I agree. And if you have resources, you can maybe employ social media editor. That would be the best solution. It's important to know whom you are addressing. For example, we have problem that our Croatian researchers are not, most of them are not on Twitter, which is the main social media for scholarly content. They are usually on Facebook, which is not very appropriate platform for example, for journal. But you need, anyhow, you need to follow your community. And first, of course, you need to recognize your potential users. So definitely engagement on social media will improve your altmetric data. Duncan mentioned before, number of downloads, number of visits, and of course, a future number of citations. As a future collaboration, I will just shortly mention 3 projects we are working on and will be working on in the next few years, and all 3 are very relevant for journals and for journal publishing. First is DIAMAS, which is focused on institutional publishing service providers and overcoming the present fragmentation in this area. We have a lot of services, but they are not connected. We have a lot of silos with different activities. So with this project, we want to improve service quality, visibility, and sustainability. So DIAMAS will map current landscape. What is important, the DIAMAS will develop European quality standard for institutional publishing, and that will really help journals not following Elsevier's or Clarivate's requirements, but quality requirements which are recognized by community, by scholarly communication community. The next project is Operas Plus, which is, yes, it's somehow close because the main goals are related to improving operas as a part of ESPRI roadmap and future ERIC, but it's some activities will really touch publishing in scholarly publishing in different countries. So, for example, establishing Opera's national notes, developing portfolio of services which will be open and every journal could use it, and to maximize Opera's impact by onboarding new members and countries in the infrastructure. And the third one is still in the process of signing, so I'm not sure if it's good to be here on the slide, but it's a very nice project led by University of Göttingen, and it's completely focused to Diamond Open Access landscape and trying to provide services which are needed by Diamond Journal publishers and or Diamond Journal itself. So Craft OA will build communities, will increase visibility, discoverability, and recognition of Diamond Open Access publishing, and hopefully this part of open access publishing will also in the future be more recognizable and get also some additional funding, which is really needed for Diamond journals. And I will end my presentation with our experiences with publishing during the war. We are all aware what is happening in Ukraine nowadays, and we had also 5 years of war in Croatia. Fortunately, this was in the past, and we are still trying to overcome the consequences. But some of Croatian-based journals actually started in the beginning of the war, under bombs and bombing, and even if war brings enormous destruction and civilian suffering, journals can somehow turn all these difficulties in their strengths. And so in Croatia, some journals decided to focus their scope and to publish on different aspects of war and other man-made or natural disasters, and approaching all the problem, of course, from the scientific point of view, and covering different disciplines from medicine, sociology, psychology. You can see the bibliography of the publications from all disciplines. I provided a link for you. Unfortunately, it's in Croatian, but you can get a clue using Google Translate or a similar tool. So you will see variety of topics related to the war in Croatia. And it's also somehow at the beginning of the war, we realized that it's really important to work with authors and to learn them how to communicate their results of research they are working on, especially because when you are dealing with the themes of war, then you will get also authors which are not pure researchers and doing research all their life, but doing some other important things. So it's important that you help potential authors with individual tutoring or some workshops or other training activities. For example, a lot of such activities were organized in Croatia for students and early career researchers. And also it is important, especially during the war, that editors are part of the international community. And this is really important for learning and gaining additional skills, and looking at the group which is supporting this project. It's really, you have a lot of opportunity to get included and to become a member, or to take some more active role in these professional societies and editorial associations. And my colleague Anna Marušić said that editing is a profession that requires skills outside research and academic work. A journal editor does not have to be an expert in computers and information science, but she or he has to be skilled in publishing and especially in digital technology. So, and knowing how to use digital technology, you can really take advantage and for journals from small scientific communities and improve visibility of the journal, influence. But it's important that you have a vision and passion for scholarly communication and scholarly publishing. And I can ensure that that editors of scholarly journals can really make a difference. Thank you.
Because it was excellent, especially the last slide, very, very inspiring. There is one question in the Q&A. So I hope everyone could see it.
Practicing or publishing lectures in scientific journals known to you.
Yeah, like lecture notes.
During oral presentation. So as I understood, the question is related to publishing presentation as a part of the journal.
Yes,
yeah.
with journal articles.
Yes. So yeah, we are all the time joking how journals, instead of all developments, are actually very traditional in what they are publishing. So they are publishing textual articles in text, and we can find a few images and few graphical presentations and tables in an article, and that's all. And I understand your need to actually publish in journal different types of scholarly contribution, but for presentation, yes, of course you can publish in the journal abstract or kind of extended abstract and link it to the presentation, which is available somewhere else. So I really think that presentations are very valuable, and especially when you have presentation and some text related to this presentation, and also recording. And I will not ruin this by inclusion of the presentation in the relatively static journal. So it's you can actually provide links and usage of this presentation in much better way, according to me. So. Could you tell a little bit? Sorry, Irina.
Yeah, please carry on.
Diamond Open Access Project. Yes, this was actually the project is approved recently, and the grant agreement is still not signed, so we are not formally allowed to say that this project is already running, because it's not. But yes, I will just return to, maybe I run too quickly to the yes. So first, we will, as a part of this project, we will provide technical improvements for journal platforms and journal software. So Duncan mentioned already different platforms for journals, and a lot of them are not affordable. I know that they are not affordable for Croatian journals, so probably are even less affordable for Ukrainian journals. And it could be quite expensive. So Craft.OA will focus on providing tools which will enable journals to publish easily. For example, for now, we have Open Journal System, and creators of Open Journal System, PKP, it's also partner in the Craft.OA project, so we will work together with them to improve Open Journal Systems, to address some issues editors are trying to solve, and actually to improve the tool itself. So the second goal is to build community together, and to enable really collaborative space for Diamond Open Access. We will work very intensively on everything which can be used for increasing visibility, discoverability, and recognition of Diamond journals. And yes, I don't know, actually, our journals in Ukraine most Diamond. In Croatia, we have 500 open access journals, and only, maybe 20 of them, not more, are charging authors. All others are Diamond. And sometimes it's really difficult to find resources to run a journal. So and even with the development of open access and open science, we are aware that more and more money is going to commercial publishers via subscriptions, and in open access world via article processing charges and all other charges. Diamond journals need to be recognized inside European Union as actually a part of the publishing landscape, which needs to be funded regularly, and that will be actually the only requirement for future development. So we will also, with Craft.OA, we will organize a lot of training materials, and all kinds of services.
There is also a request to share contact details, and I was looking for Margot's contact details. I couldn't find it immediately. So I don't know, maybe if you have them in hand. Yeah, and you're still sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry.
So we'll find the contact of head of Göttingen University Press. Put it in the chat. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Thanks a lot. You're really fast.
Yeah. If anyone want to just raise hand and discuss person, not via chat, you are welcome to do so.
And if it's easier for you to speak Ukrainian, please do so, and I'll interpret for Yarenka. Or maybe she'll even understand, because she's from Croatia. I think she'll understand 30%.
Yes, you also understand how it was difficult for me to speak after Duncan and his perfect pronunciation, etc., and with my bad English, but you really don't need to be ashamed.
Tatiana, please. I think you should be able to speak now.
Am I able to speak now? Yeah.
Yes. Hi.
Okay. So thanks for your presentation. It was really useful, and I asked you about the contacts in the Göttingen University, and I'm here received a scholarship for a year. And my question is a more philosophical one, because you said that the editor should have different skills and than the research fellow. So that's the thing I believe many scholars and many Ukrainian editors face with, is which identity to develop. Editorial one, because I have a journal of open access, it's a journal for urban studies, or the research identity, because it's hard to combine. And have such a feeling that I'm coming to a point where I have to choose either to stay an editor or a researcher. If I hope I.
Yes, Tatiana, this is very. So your name is Tatiana. This is good pronunciation. Yes, this is really good question, and I'm sure that a lot of editors are asking themselves the same question. So I could give you the example of my favorite creation editor, Anna Marušić, and she's really, but she's a kind of superwoman, and I don't think that anyone is able to do what is she doing. So she's editing 2 journals, and also she's very active in the general scholarly communication area outside the journals, especially related to research integrity and responsible research, and also she's active in research in her field, medicine, actually anatomy, and she's publishing regularly from that discipline. But I personally, I'm not superwoman at all. So it's I think that you need to actually, as a journal editors, I would suggest you to focus on editing issues, to be a good journal editor, and to be educated in skill in that area. You already have research experience, and probably when you finish your editorial career, you will be able to focus 100% on your research again. But I think that editorial work is first very demanding, second very needed, and third that it's huge responsibility on editor's shoulders. So it's because everything is changing constantly, and especially when you are without enough funding, then you need to be very creative to actually to run a good journal. But yeah, very good question.
Thank you.
I think you're all superhumans. Doing what you are doing and being
especially in these circumstances.
Everyone who is attending today as superhumans.
Irina is also a super woman.
But I gave up
Superhuman.
research. I decided that I can't combine management and research. Yeah, I don't see any other questions. So thank you so much. I think as always, you will receive a link to slides and recording, and there will be Jadranka's and Duncan's contact details there, and yeah, I'm sure they'll be happy to answer any further questions you might have when you'll be going back through slides, or if you remember something. And in SOS project supporting Ukrainian editorial staff, we'll make sure that we collaborate with everyone within the AMAS project that Jadranka mentioned, because many of us are part of that project, and we'll make sure that it benefits Ukraine. We will have our first kickoff meeting later in September in Jadranka's town, so we'll get in touch with you later this autumn, I guess, about DMS and how we could help you. And craft I'm sure that there will also be interest to support Ukrainian journals. And we'll also plan to have more webinars in SOS project. So when we will be planning more webinars, we'll email you about that. We don't have the dates or themes yet. And also, if you have any suggestions for themes, please, like what topics should we address in our forthcoming webinars? We feel like we would need to go back probably to these editorial issues and maybe allocate some more time to talk about that. But maybe there will be more topics. So thank you so much, and thanks Emil and Jadranka.
Thank you all for your time and your patience. And yes, if you, as Irina said, if you have a need for some topic to be covered in more details, please let us know and we will organize something.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Have a quiet day.